Well, we're back at precision, and we're going to work our way through a scud, which is a pattern I get asked about quite often. So what I have in the vise right now is a 11-20 curved hook and a size 12. Carry these 12, 14 down to 16. Before we even get going, I'm going to lead the hook. So we have some lead-free, or this is just lead wire. You could use lead-free stuff as well. This is flat. And then what I have here has a sticky back to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to weight the fly with this, and this will also give us some shape at the end. So I'm just going to touch that there. And I'm going to put on a hook this size 3 layers of this. Pretty heavy fly. Tapering it on both ends. So I'm ending up just a little shy of the end of the lead there. Back up to the front, one little shy there as well. Now for thread, I'm using this Semperfli Nano Silk. This is the 12-aught. This is really fine stuff. But we end up with quite a few wraps on this fly, so the smaller thread is a huge benefit. So just attach the thread and over the lead a few times to secure that to the hook. Now for the tail and the antenna on this, I'm going to use Indian hen back as well. This is dyed olive. I'm doing a little olive version. Partridge works just fine. I'm going to come over here and tease out about a dozen fibers. This is going to be my tail. Even up my tips. Remove it from my feather. I want this to be about the gap of the hook for length. I'm down around the bend just a little bit. I'm going to come in here and attach that to the top of the hook. And then these butt ends I'm just going to bury right on top. That'll add to the taper. Now we need the back of the fly. And what we're going to use for that is Scud back in an 1/8 inch. And I have it here in olive. I'm going to lay this in on top of the hook, tie that in, stretch it a little bit just to make sure we're keeping it right up on top, right to the base of those tails. Now for a rib, I like to use, this is just 6X, this is just an old spool of monofilament tippet material I had laying around. Now this is a slippery material and we have a slippery thread, so what we're going to do is just nibble on the end a little bit. Just to put some creases in there so the thread has something to bite into, because we don't need this pulling out when we go to wrap it. And tie that to the base of the tails as well. So that's all our materials tied in for the shell back. Now for the dubbing, we're going to use this sow scud dubbing. This is an olive. And we're going to dub from the back to the front. So keep everything out of our way. Get ourselves a nice noodle of dubbing on our thread. And then starting back here at the base of the tails, work our way up in touching turns. Tapers are already kind of built into this fly. I'm going to add a little bit of taper to it with the dubbing. We're just shy. We'll add just a little bit more. Finish off that taper. We're going to park our thread right behind that head. Now I like to put my antenna in at this point. You can tie these certainly without this. And I did for the longest time, but I started putting it back in. I like the realistic look to it. So I'm going to, same thing I did on the back of the fly for the tails, I'm going to do for the antenna. I'm going to Get myself a dozen fibers or so. And this is about the same length, about that gap of the hook. I'm going to lay this right up on top. Trap those down in. Lengthen those out just a little more. So those are tied in. Now at this point we're going to have two materials coming forward, so I'm going to actually put a half hitch in here so my thread don't fall off the front of the hook. So that's tied in, my half hitch is there, nothing can come undone, and trim those butts. Now what we're going to do is we're going to bring our shell back over, and the reason I don't like tying my shell back on and then ribbon through it, the torque from the monofilament or the rib is going to try to take it to the far side. Doing it this way, I can control where that shell back ends up. What I like to do is get one turn onto the body, and then I can just start working my way forward. I don't usually count how many ribs I put in here, but you're going to get probably 9 or so. As I go forward, I widen them out a little bit. And you can see I can manipulate that shell back, that scud back, so it lands right on top of the hook. We're just going to work our way right up to the eye of the hook. The last turn, I'm going to pull the shell back out of my way, reach down with my thread, tie that off. This is where the nano silk really shines. We can get quite a few tight wraps in there without adding a lot of bulk. Now we can nip off our tag end of our rib, and then our last piece of shellback comes over to finish the fly. Covers up any of those wraps, a couple turns, then just climb in front of the eye underneath those antenna that we put on, and we'll put our whip finish in. Support that eye of the hook, suck that knot right down in there. We're going to stretch our shell back just a little bit, clip that away. Now we've got a few things to kind of finish the fly to really get it to play the part. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take, I just have a piece of Velcro here. I'm going to rub this on the body. And what that'll do is it'll grab some of that dubbing and pull it out. And that'll give us a real nice realistic look for the legs. If you end up having a few in there a little too long, I'll just come in here and nip them, trim them down a bit. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to come in. We have that lead underbody. We're going to give it a nice little pressing. The nice thing about using the monofilament as opposed to wire for the rib, the monofilament will stretch but won't break. Plus it'll have a little bit of elasticity to it, and it'll stay tight to the body, whereas a rib or a wire rib would not do that. So we're just going to come in. These are just flat jawed pliers. We're going to just flatten the sides of it so that lead will take that shape and then hold that shape. Give you that real nice look of a scud. And that's it. That's going to be our little scud.